Well, good morning from Milwaukee. It is day 4 of the Republican National Convention, and it's always fun to see people walking around the building, and you say, I know that guy, he's famous. This is Grover Norquist from Americans for Tax Reform. Grover, thanks for giving me a few minutes here.
Absolutely.
I want to talk to you about a couple things that you talk about a lot. We wonder how to get this economy going. We know that the top line numbers, sometimes you can find a headline that looks good, but deep under it, the jobs numbers don't look good. Inflation numbers don't look good. Buying power doesn't look good. How do we get this economy rolling again? What's the prescription to get this economy cooking again?
We go back to what was working, the Reagan tax cuts, the Trump tax cuts, and we need to make sure that the Trump tax cuts, the rate reductions, both on business and on individuals, are made permanent. Those were tremendously powerful. In the second year of the Trump tax cut, we saw the median income for a family of 4 increase by 6.8%. Now that's sustainable. That's forever. That gain is every year, and that came from reducing the corporate income tax, because the corporate income tax is simply a tax on consumers, raises prices.
Yeah.
It's a tax on workers, lower wages for workers if you take money out of a company, and if you damage the company so it's worth less, people who are invested in that company, in their 401k, their IRA, their pension, see their nest egg, their pension reduced. So we need to move forward with lower rates, both on individuals and on businesses, because business taxes are paid by people, not by businesses. The property tax of the grocery store is paid by you when you buy things at the grocery store. It's not a tax on the grocery store. The store doesn't pay taxes. The store doesn't go on vacation. The store just sits there. You pay taxes when you buy things, and they're taxes on the business. The other one is the deregulation. We simply need to have fewer regulations, simpler regulations. We need to go back for all regulations, and every 5 years, if they don't make any sense, throw them out, rewrite them, but there should be a check. A lot of regulations were put in decades and decades and decades ago and make little or no sense, but they're expensive.
So let me ask you about 2 of President Trump's ideas that he's floated out there that I am trying to figure out, are these great ideas or maybe good ideas at a different time? Okay. Number 1 is eliminating the tax on tips, and the second is the 10% tariff, 60 to 100 if it's Chinese goods. Do you like those 2 ideas?
Well, the first idea is brilliant. It's both good economically. If you reduce taxes on tips, you increase the return to work for somebody who's a waiter or a waitress. We'll bring more people back into the workforce. A lot of places have help wanted signs out, and that's one way to get more money into the hands of workers who get off the sofa and come to work.
Yes.
But it's not always worth it if taxes are too high. The tariff is a challenge because the president has successfully used tariffs to get the Mexicans to behave on certain issues, threatening a tariff if they don't help on the border. Threatening a tariff can get you something. If you have to implement it, here's the challenge. Tariffs against Chinese goods are paid by Americans. They're not paid by Chinese people. Americans pay for it. And particularly for inputs like steel, if you have a tariff on Chinese steel or European steel or aluminum, that makes our cars more expensive. So all of a sudden you've gone to the auto workers and said, you are now going to have trouble competing internationally because you are forced to buy steel that's more expensive. And so you do a lot of damage when inputs. So you don't want to have tariffs on inputs, the things that we make. It damages our manufacturing to put tariffs on things that you manufacture with. And then you can't compete with the Germans or the French or other people there. So it's a very blunt instrument. He has certainly made it clear to the Chinese, to Hong Kong, not Hong Kong, to Taiwan and Japan and European countries, we want reciprocity. But reciprocity to where neither of us are taxing their own consumers. And the more we can do, why is the United States rich? We have 50 states. We are the largest free trade zone in the world. That's one of the reasons we're rich. And there were some challenges with NAFTA, but President Trump fixed those largely. And now we're even bigger. Pretty much free trade. Completely free trade inside, more or less free trade with Canada and Mexico. That really allows us to expand both our production and to get inputs less expensively made. So I'll trust the president
mixed
to
on
be
that
so,
one.
to be so. Well, it's like, do you want nuclear weapons? Yes. Do you want to use them? Not really.
Yeah, right. I want to ask you about Joe Biden's claim that he has had 19 Nobel laureates look at President Trump's tax plans and his fiscal ideas and say it's going to create more inflation. Do you buy that?
No, and you can get a Nobel Peace Prize for being very bright in insight in one area. There's a New York Times columnist, Krugman, who gets that, who got one of those for writing on free trade issues. And then, when Trump was elected, he announced we're going to be in a recession because he was a smart Nobel Prize winning economist. Well, actually, the stock market boomed, employment boomed, income boomed because of his policies. They actually even boomed when the market believed they were going to happen. They didn't wait for it to happen. They said, this is going to be good. This is going to be good. I see the stock market going up again as this is going on right here. Somebody thinks that Trump's going to win the election.
Yeah, well, let's hope so. Want to ask you about the jobs numbers. Joe Biden says, I've created all these jobs. What's the real story?
Most of what he's talking about were we shut down the economy to a large extent as a result of COVID. Bad advice from the deep state saying, oh, this is science, we have to do this. Turns out they didn't know what they were doing. That guy Fauci had no idea what he was doing, and he did a lot of damage with that approach. Very, very sad. Wish he hadn't done that, wish it hadn't happened. But as states then opened up, jobs returned that had already been there and were only not there because of COVID. But the growth has been slow. Worse than that, the growth that has been there is largely government workers. And so when you hire more government workers, that's not sustainable. When a company hires 10 people, it's because they're producing more than you pay them. So it's sustainable because there's enough to hire other people to work with them, to have machinery for them. And that's a sustainable job. When you hire somebody in the government, they said last year we stole $100,000 from the American people, we'll give it to you. And then what about next year? Oops, we're going to have to go steal another 100,000. There's no sustainable there. It's not like you did anything that created the wealth for us to pay you. So government jobs end when there's no money for them. They're not producing wealth. So it's much too much weighted, his quote-unquote job cushion. Add to that, the real number you want is not how many jobs there are, but what percentage of the labor force is working, labor force participation. And right now, that's not good. It was very bad under Obama. It was very good under Trump. It's been not so good here. It means a lot of people have decided, I'm not working. Maybe I'm not working because the pay people's offering is not that useful. I'm not working because I'm retiring and I might come out if the pay was better, or I'm on welfare and I don't have to work. Yeah. All of those things reduce the labor force participation rate, and usually in a recovery, the labor force participation rate gets better. It's not been getting better under Biden.
Last question for you. You've been around the block a few times at these conventions. You've seen it all. You've seen campaigns. What does your gut tell you about President Trump's chances to get reelected in November?
I thought they were pretty good when it became clear Biden's challenges and that the entire Democratic Party and the establishment press for 4 years had been lying about Biden's capacity to make decisions and really be in charge. They had, 12 people sitting in the White House making all the decisions. The House and Senate leadership knew that. The Democrat congressmen and senators knew that. The press knew that. And they all lied about it. So the real scandal is not that Biden allowed himself to be put up in front of the cameras and pretend to be president. It's that everybody around him allowed that to happen. So I thought when that exploded, it so discredited the left in general and the Democrat Party in general, not just Biden. As the guy said who declined to to charge him with a crime. He said he's too old and can't remember anything. Yes. You can't charge him with anything because he doesn't know.
A well-meaning old man who just doesn't have it in him anymore.
And Biden said that money was cleared. That's not quite what it meant. And they won't release the tapes that convinced him that he wasn't all there. That said, he may well be pushed into traffic by the Democratic Party, but all the people around them have bought into his worldview. They've all voted for his tax increases. They voted for his spending increases. All the legislators, the vice president. So I don't think by having him leave, the target of the failure of the Biden Democrat years. And I suppose we should probably talk about Democrats more than Biden, because the Democrats in the House had to vote for them, the Democrats in the Senate had to vote for them, the Democrat governors all endorsed this stuff. It really was a party position. It was not one guy. And I'm not even sure he was in on the decision making. He may not have been in the room when they made the decision about how they were going to tax and spend. And you add that to, I think, amazing wisdom on Trump's part when Biden was self-destructing to just sit out
back
and watch. It is so tempting. It's like professional wrestling to jump back into the fight. No, they're doing just fine without me there.
That's right.
And that was, he has learned so much about how the bureaucratic state fights all efforts at reform. I think a second term will speed up how quickly he can get certain things done.
Okay, very good. Gruber, thanks for the time. Great to see you again.
You got it. Thank you.
Thank you.